Hi there, boys and girls, and welcome to another Teacher Donald's Grammar Review lesson with me, Teacher Donald. For this grammar review lesson, we're going to look at how to use had to and didn't have to when we're talking about past obligations, and we'll also be looking at could and couldn't when we're talking about past possibilities or past abilities. Let's get started. First, let's look at had to and didn't have to. So how do we talk about obligations we had in the past or we did in the past? First, we'll use had to and then just the verb. So even though we're talking about the past, we're not using the past tense form of the verb. We're using had to and then just the verb. In a negative sentence, it's a little trickier. We're going to use didn't and then have to, and then the verb. So notice in the yes sentence, we're going to use had to, but in the negative, it goes back to have to. And sometimes you might see a question about past obligations, so it would look like this. Did you have to blah, blah, blah? Now let's play, what did they have to do? So we're going to look at some children doing something, and you're going to tell me what the past obligation was. Take a look at this first one. Tell me what he had to do. Say your answer out loud. Do you know what it is? Say the full sentence. The full sentence is, he had to wash the dishes. Say it after me. He had to wash the dishes. Now let's try another one. This is something she didn't have to do. So can you complete this sentence? She didn't have to. And maybe there's a couple possible answers, but I think the best one is she didn't have to walk to school. So maybe her parents gave her a ride or she took the bus. Say it after me. She didn't have to walk to school. All right, here's another affirmative or yes sentence. Try and tell me what he had to do. Say it out loud. Something you might have to do in the morning. This one is, he had to make the bed. Say it after me. He had to make the bed. Is this something you had to do this morning? Now let's look at another one. This time it's a negative, so be careful. She didn't have to blah, blah, blah. Take a look. She would probably be pretty happy. Do you know the full answer? She didn't have to write homework. Or maybe you could have said study. Say the sentence after me. She didn't have to write homework. Lucky girl. Now let's look at this one. Something he had to do. Do you know what it is? Say the full sentence. This one is, he had to water the flowers. Say it after me. He had to water the flowers. Maybe he's helping his mom or his grandma. And those flowers are tulips. They're very pretty. Now here's a negative one. What is something she didn't have to do? Say it out loud. I think you know the answer. This one is, she didn't have to clean her room. Say it after me. She didn't have to clean her room. Okay, here's another one. This is a yes sentence. What is something he had to do? I think you know what it is, so say the full answer out loud. He had to feed the dog. Say it after me. He had to feed the dog. Because his dog just can't go to McDonald's by himself and get a hamburger. You have to feed the dog. Good job. Now let's chat a little bit. So we just talked about what some other children had to do, and I want you to share some things that maybe you had to do yesterday. So take a look. What did you have to do yesterday? Can you share some ideas? Try and tell me two for each. Two things you had to do, and maybe two things you didn't have to do. You can use the ideas on the bottom, or you can use your own ideas. So what did you have to do yesterday? Say your answers out loud. Okay, I can tell you a few of mine. I had to do chores. I didn't have to cook dinner. My wife did that. I had to eat a lot of food because I didn't want to waste the food. And I didn't have to write homework. Okay, thanks for sharing your answers. Now let's look at could and couldn't. And we use these when we're talking about past possibilities or past abilities. So I'm going to show you some actions, and you have to tell me whether these were things Donald could do when he was young or couldn't do when he was young. So let's take a look at the list now. Let's look at the first one, swim well. Do you think this is something Donald could do or couldn't do? Say your answer out loud. So Donald could or Donald couldn't swim well. What do you think? Well, if I'm being honest, the answer is yes, he could swim well. Say it after me. He could swim well. Now let's look at the next one. Read well. Do you think this is something Donald could do when he was young? Say your answer out loud. And the honest answer is he couldn't read well. So when I was younger, I actually was a slow reader and I didn't really like it very much. But now I read all the time and I love it. So even if you're like me and you can't read very well right now, well, just keep trying and you will enjoy it soon, I promise. Now let's look at the next one. The next one is ride a bike. Do you think this is something Donald could do or couldn't do? Say your answer out loud. He could ride a bike. I started really young with the training wheels, and when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I could ride pretty well. I started practicing on the grass just in case I fell down, I wouldn't get hurt. Okay, let's move on and see the next one. The next one is use Google. So when I was young, do you think this is something I could do? So what could Donald do? He couldn't use Google. Google wasn't invented when I was younger, and the internet only started in about 1991. Say it after me. He couldn't use Google. And now let's look at the last one. Play video games. Do you think this is something Donald could or couldn't do? The right answer is he could play video games. And in the picture, that's a picture of an Atari video game system where there's a video game called Pac-Man where you're a little yellow circle and you have to eat all these little dots. I could play that game when I was young. So say it after me. He could play video games. Good job. Now, once again, let's chat for a little bit. Now, I want you to think back about when you were in grade 2. So that was only 2 years ago. What could you do? Take a look at the list on the side. Swim well, read well, ride a bike, use Google, play video games. And your answers might be different than mine. So think back to grade 2 and give me full answers for each one. I could swim well or I couldn't swim well. Go ahead and share your answers now. Make sure you're using full sentences. Keep talking. Say your answers out loud and use full sentences. So I could use Google or I couldn't use Google. Maybe you didn't know how, or maybe you just didn't have access to it. Okay, your time's up. And once again, thanks for sharing. And now it's quiz time. Take a look at this sentence and look at the options down below, A or B. Which one would you use to finish this sentence? Now remember, we could talk about how I'm a teacher and I walk to school, but think about when I was younger. So Donald have to walk to school every day, or Donald had to walk to school every day? There's actually only one right answer, A or B. What do you think? The answer is B. Because even if we were talking about right now, we would say Donald has to walk to school. So had to is the only option. And now say it after me. Donald had to walk to school every day. All right, let's try the next one. So this is about my mom when she was younger. Which one should we use, A or B, to finish this sentence? Think about the rule. The answer is A. In the negative, we don't use had to, we use have to. So say the answer after me. My mom didn't have to take the bus to school. She could just walk. Okay, here's another one. Take a look. Would you use A or B to finish this sentence? Remember the rule. The right answer is A. I had to cook dinner last night. Say it after me. I had to cook dinner last night. And if you didn't have to cook dinner, then maybe your mom or grandma did it, or maybe you just went out and bought some McDonald's. Okay, what about this one? Remember the rule for could. Do we have to do anything to the verb? The right answer is A. My mom could swim very fast. So when we're talking about past abilities, we're going to use could or couldn't, and we don't need to change the verb. Next one, take a look. A or B, which one will finish this sentence? And remember, we're talking about the past, when I was 5. So are we going to use A or B? The right answer is B. Couldn't. Couldn't is the past tense form of can't. So I couldn't ride a bike when I was 5. Say it after me. I couldn't ride a bike when I was 5. Okay, I think we have one more. Take a look at this one. A or B, which one will help us finish this sentence correctly? The right answer is A. We couldn't use Google when we were young. It wasn't invented. Say it after me. We couldn't use Google when we were young. Good job. And that's it for Teacher Donald's Grammar Review lesson. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.